Welcome to Reactive Wednesdays. My name is Kathryn Grayson Nance. I am, as always, thrilled to be your host today, and I have a fantastic guest to introduce to you. Today, we are going to be talking all about testing your React apps, something that I know very little about and am incredibly excited to be educated on. So, here we are. Welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for joining. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself real quick? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yep. Thanks, Kathryn, for the nice intro. And hi, everyone. My name is Peter. I am good evening or good morning. Actually, I'm physically located in Europe at the moment, and more specifically in Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria, and even more specifically in the student city, the so-called student city, suburban area of Sofia. And it's a beautiful evening for me here. We're colleagues with Kathryn. We work at the same company. I'm a sales engineer, and usually when people ask me what you actually do, I always think I have a kind of identity crisis because
it's hard. It's a shockingly hard question.
Very hard to explain. I can give it a shot now. Sales engineer, disclaimer, I'm not a sales guy. So please do not expect any sales pitches or marketing slides, some fancy stuff. But I do work closely with the sales guys in our company. Hence the first part of my title, and the second title, engineer. Well, you're not looking exactly at the developer here, right? I'm something like if you make me code today, Kathryn, I would be a little bit worried and my hands will get sweaty. I might be able to do it, but I think the 1 hour live stream time would not be enough to finish that. So hence, but yeah, I'm the kind of try to be the missing link between the business guys and the technical.
Nice.
Folks.
And you specialize, right, in Test Studio, which is a software that, or it might not be, maybe specialize is the wrong word. One of the things that you're well familiar with is Test Studio.
Do you even test, bro?
I don't.
Yes. Actually, I started my career in the software development industry a long time ago as a QA engineer.
Oh, nice. This is all making sense too. I didn't know that about you, and this is all making sense now.
Surprised, right? Or not surprised, actually. I started as a manual QA engineer back then. It was so fun. Anyways, but yeah, I have liked this quality, this keen eye so much. So I can say that I have a keen eye for stuff. And my QA experience keeps chasing me and helping me in my current career development, of course, right? But I'm not a typical QA guy, so no worries. We're not going to talk about, and we're not going to find so many bugs today, I promise.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. So this is the part where I have to admit that I know almost nothing about testing. It is something that I know that I should know, that I should be better at as a software developer. And just over the course of my career, I have not been required to learn it. And so it just kind of hasn't happened beyond just like writing some really basic unit tests. I've been lucky to work on teams that had a dedicated QA engineer, and they would just kick things back to me and I would fix them. So I'm really excited to have you on. And for folks that similarly know absolutely nothing like me, can you tell us kind of like testing 101? What does it involve? Why is it so important? Why should we bother? It looks hard.
Actually, I'm also quite happy to be part of those React Wednesdays in this session today, because even for me, from purely professional perspective and the things I do almost every day, it would be curious if there are more cases like you, Kathryn, like dev guys who absolutely and quite honestly and sincerely don't care about testing, right? And whoever is willing, by the way, to drop some comments into the chat or whatever, I would also be happy to hear how our audience today's approaches testing. But starting from the very original book almost 8 years ago, or the Y2K. Do you remember the Y2K, by the
Oh
way?
my God.
2000,
Yes.
like everybody was afraid that the world will cease, will come to
Yeah,
an
it's like
end.
the stickers on the side of desktop computers,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
shut
yeah,
down.
because of the integers limit, right? And we couldn't
Yes.
go past year 2000.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we're still here, thankfully, and everything
You
is
made it.
fine. But we made it, right? I always like to give it as an example, of course, to the people who can relate or remember on how important testing is. But joke apart, I mean, after all, most of us here, right, developers or engineers, we work in the software industry to, apart from the ones who work just do this for fun, but for the majority of us who work this and create those applications which are used by our customers, you know how clocked, if I can say, the entire plethora of applications that exist today, that on average, if you install something new and if you don't like it, or if it was too slow, or if something is bothering you, you can just exit it and would never give it a chance. That's why we have, as software developers, we have this very slight chance to be perfect, to make this first impression, because it's very difficult to have a second first impression chance in software development, at least for me. Right. And how we can do that? Well, some QA, quality assurance, testing magic. Unit tests are great. You guys, you developers, like it, love it a lot, because there is so much code involved, and they're quite logical, right? But what will happen after you add some UI to all of this stuff? I'm not sure that the UI test would be completely robust and applicable to that. That's why climbing into the pyramid, the so-called testing pyramid, or ice cream cone, whatever you want to call it, inverted pyramid, or just have an ice cream cone. You have these unit tests, but the more you progress towards the application lifecycle, you add the integration tests, how your application would behave, not only when it is isolated, but when it is part of an entire ecosystem, how it will work with your phone book on the phone, with clipboard even, or whatever, right? With different third-party integrations, and not to mention UI. I'm also part of the UI development teams here. I have a keen eye. I love sleek and nice UI. A long time ago, I studied the history of art. So again,
Oh, really?
I like
We have
this a
that in
lot.
common too.
Oh yeah, nice. So in order to have the sleekest and the best UI, I doubt that you can leave the acceptance to your customers, right, or to your end
Right.
users. We might need to involve some testing before that, right? So yeah, starting from here, reaching to the end of the world, like the year 2000 bug, testing is kind of useful, I could say. Right.
Okay.
Did I try to change your mind a little bit? Did I manage to do it, or still not?
You did it. I am sold. And I want to emphasize that I do understand how important testing is, and I always have. I just I don't know how to do it. So if someone like me is looking to get into testing their apps a little more robustly, into doing more than just writing those unit tests, or doing some like test-driven development kind of stuff, where do we start? What's out there for those of us looking to dip our toes into the QA side of things?
Absolutely. By the way, no joke apart, unit tests are indeed essential, right? I promised no sales pitches or marketing stuff, but if we try to follow some best practices, I can't imagine a software development initiative or shop or company or whatever that wouldn't perform unit tests on the very coding.
Yeah, they're just one part of a bigger thing, right? So if you're only doing this much, you got to be doing this much.
But as you progress further, you have the chance to just rely on the unit test, or start using different. I mean, unit test is one thing. Let's leave it apart, especially for you JavaScript guys. I say for you JavaScript guys, of course, jokingly a little bit, but I have quite an experience in .NET, not that much into JavaScript itself. That's why I'm not going to show you any fancy JS unit tests today, right? But as you progress further, you have different options, different tool sets, different approaches to do integration, API testing, UI testing, and that kind of stuff, be it manually and automatically or automagically. And by the way, Kathryn, this is a whole new story. Now you know what testing is and you want to learn how to do it, but how do you want to do it? Do you want to run the scripts manually every morning and lose 4 hours of your day? Or do you want something to do this for you, like an automation framework or two? And this is still a huge discussion in the industry, by the way. There are a lot of people who prefer and who still do manual testing.
Just because they feel like it's more complete, or they get a better picture of things? What's the
first, liking taking control of everything, but second, I don't want to call it fear or something like that, but going into the automation direction would involve some investment of time and skills. In order to gain time, though, after this automation starts to work, you need to invest time. And it's kind of, reinventing the wheel thing. Can I separate 10 hours of my time to learn how this, not that anyone can learn a framework in 10 hours, but can I invest 10 hours per week to check what this testing framework is, automation testing framework is doing? Or can I continue doing it like I just do manually? I don't have time at the moment, right? I don't have time to automate. So it's a mindset, kind of a mindset change on one end, but I promise not to do any business marketing talk. And the other is learning curve. I mean, there are different technologies, different tools. There are dedicated JavaScript tools. There are .NET tools. There are framework agnostic automation tools which can do this for you, but they have a learning curve. And again, you need to invest to learn them. Also, there are a lot of people, mainly from the QA part of you, who are afraid I can lose my job to automation. Like we're afraid that we can lose our jobs to ChatGPT. I promise not to mention ChatGPT, by the way, at all, because everyone does it. But it's also kind of a mindset, but still, adapting to change is good. Adopting best practices is even better, and having something handy to check your app before your customer does is best.
That would be nice. So, speaking of that,
sold, right? And motivated to do some testing. Are you still sold?
That was what I was about to say. Are you ready to do some actual testing? Because I have for you a completely untested app for us to explore. Anybody?
Do I have a choice? Actually, I mean, I should be ready. Should be ready to do it. And by the way, as a pure disclaimer for everyone here today, me and Kathryn, we don't talk to each other. It doesn't mean that we fight, right? But just because we're part of a big corporation, we didn't have the chance to work together previously, and which was a good opportunity, by the way. We currently met each other and decided to do something about testing. So we haven't prepared something fancy in advance at all, right? We want to be as natural as possible on the session today, so we can scratch the surface a little bit about automation testing with tool like Test Studio, right? That I'm going to show you, which, by the way, is a third-party commercial tool, right? So this is the plan, and let's see what we can do in the remaining 40-50 minutes or so. I'm eager to to do some
Yeah.
coding, testing, debugging, and stuff.
So for those of you who are watching, you may have seen this app before. This is the demo app. I'll show my screen. Yeah, you guys have probably, if you tuned in before, you've seen this. You all know that I'm a big old Star Trek fan. And this is the KendoReact demo app that I use to add components to show off after all of our releases, or to do like YouTube to make demos, or show how different components can work together, and especially to show off all of our styling and theming options. However, because I'm so bad at testing, I have not run a single test ever on this app. I just write things and I push them up and then I stop thinking about them. So this thing, any bugs that we find are going to be A, abundant, and B, genuine. This is not something we put together special. So we're doing some real testing today. Yeah. First off, welcome Thindle. Glad you joined. Good to see you again. And yeah, we are in fact effectively testing in prod, because I just push this thing out there and it hangs out. And I'm confident that it is going to be full of bugs. So
Yeah.
so, all right.
We don't promise to fix them all though today, right? Let's shake hands.
I want to. Yeah, no, we're not going to fix them all. I would love to find them all, right? Which is what testing is for, ideally, right? You just find them and then you get to kick it back to me, and then it's my problem again. So okay, where do I start? What do we do?
Where do we want to go? Right. Yeah. What does this cute app do? Can you just try to outline a little bit?
So it's got a couple different pieces. There's one I would like to especially take a look at today if we have some time. But in general, this app just kind of shows off our components. So we get some grids.
Just open it on my end as well. Yeah.
I do have this form that I added recently though. So I would like to take a look at this if we can. I've got some just basic inputs, right? First name, last name, a drop-down selector, a date selector, and just input boxes. So if we could take a look at this part, that would be interesting to me. Yeah, comment says, no one can break things quite like people actually using the things. Yeah. Absolutely. We're gonna see how close we can get. So actually, what are your thoughts on that? Like, can a testing software like Test Studio replicate? Will it catch all the things like users will actually go in and break things? Is that equivalent?
This is so again, going back to the big story a little bit on the different approaches within the automation testing. There are sub approaches there as well. You can continue doing everything by code, right? Good luck. Apart from the unit testing stuff, you can automatically create your scripts based on locating the different, and this is KendoReact, right? So based on the different elements and locators and stuff, you can code all of this, enjoy, create the scripts, and have a little bit of headache when you have to update something, or when the developers introduce a new version, so that you can update your coded scripts as well. Or my little bit more favorite approach is the usage of tool sets, which are the so-called point and click recorders. Point and click recorders means that and what I'm going to show you is that I'm using this application. I can enter the first name and last name and my rank, Admiral, of course, and based on my clicks, based on my actions, I'm gonna create a test script, right? Which later on I can reproduce, execute as many times as I want unattendedly, right? So if more or less I try to mimic those end users' behavior, right? And their potential clicks or data entries or validations, verifications, or whatever, I can create those scripts and execute them every day, hour, week, or whatever. So, else said, with such point-and-click recording tools, we're trying to mimic the behavior of our end user, literally, and see how it goes and replicates into the app.
Got it.
Right.
Nice. So that's what we're going to be doing today, that kind of replication user input, the point-and-click style, right? So, cool. All right. Take a quick break. Hey, Aztec, glad you joined. Welcome. Happy to see you again. For folks that have just jumped on, we are getting ready to run some actual tests on my as of yet untested Star Trek Kendo demo app. So buckle up.
Let's do some visual testing right now. Of course, we're going to do some data logic verification testing as well. But visual testing, if we're going to talk about visual testing, scaling is also important because what's happening at the moment. So I managed to open your app beforehand, right? So let me quickly open it again, right? I'm a huge Star something fan, so gonna name it. Star Wars, Star Trek, Star Wars from Marvel.
You don't
everything
discriminate. You're a fan of all of it. The
yeah,
chat
I know. I know you can't be both a real Star Trek fan, a real Star Wars fan. You need to choose one of those. But there are exceptions, And
I think you can. Yeah, just Star or whatever. No, the chat here famously loves to try and distract me into talking about Star Trek on stream. I will do my best to resist them yet again today. So go on.
No worries at all. And as you can see here, even it's common for most of the tool sets, right? It's not something specific to the tool that I'm using at the moment, Test Studio. But they always recommend to set the current monitor at 100%. All right, because automation, visual automation, you find an element on the screen and based on some criteria, and you try to click it, right? And if you create a test on different scaling and execute it on another, this might scramble. The elements might be scrambled, and some issues might occur. Not that they will, but still, it's usually recommended to keep it neat and clean it and 100%. But if I do it right now, I doubt that the screen sharing would be optimal enough, right? So point and click, right? What we are gonna do and which browser am I using on the correct screen, right? Yes, you can see it. So basically, what we're gonna do today, and I need to change it a little bit because of the resolution. What we're gonna do today is try to replicate the behavior via recording, and as you can see here, this little guy is the recorder, which doesn't interrupt, doesn't bother us at all. But so we go here, right, and we need to play with this little form. So first name and last name, right? We do the clicks, Jon Snow, but I wouldn't be Jon Snow today, right? Maybe William Riker or something like.
There you go.
By the way, this is good because, or we can make William Snow, right? For it, and all of those actions that you do are recorded as the steps in Test Studio. If I can move my monitor.
Oh, so it's already capturing. It's capturing every single click that
every single click. Sorry if you're too quick or if you don't know at the beginning exactly what you're gonna do. You have a little bit of junk recorded. No offense. Right, and you might need to delete it. So I'm pretty sure I don't need Jon Snow or those random clicks. But basically it was William Riker, right? And there we go. So what we have here so far is opening the application through such point-and-click recording tool, navigating to the part of our application, which is this request to shore option, and start filling in the form. Right. So going back to my recorder, is that I would be very happy to try to randomize this at some point of time, like what we can enter for first name and last name, because I'm not sure, by the way, and this is a very good question. I mean, if there is some validation in the background, especially for, I'm pretty sure there would be some validation after I click submit.
Yeah.
But like validations, can I have digits or maximum number of characters in those input fields and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, this form has only very basic validation. The first name and I think actually everything except the additional comments I have marked as required. So it will validate whether there's content in them or not. And the shore leave, I think I set a max date like a year from now. So you can only book shore leave for the next year. Other than that, so super minimal validation already built in, but that's.
So William Riker was a captain, if I remember correctly. So let's select the captain here. All of these are can-do components. So at some point of time, we might try to play with them a little bit more, right? Currently, at the moment, I'm just doing the very first steps. I'm recording my script, but later on we can make it a little bit more fun and advanced, right? So what are we today? The 6th, the 5th of April, right? If I want to enter April, right? Year 2023, right? And start date. This is something that I also want to randomize. By the way, I wouldn't just play with this little calendar table here, because I want to generate some random dates or use the current date or something like that. Yes, you can do it with JavaScript, you can do it with .NET, or if you're lucky enough to have such tool that does this automatically for you and create a variable, you can do it with it. So how long would it take us? 1 week or something like that, right?
Seems reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah. You said that there are some validations here for the dates, right? So which is the maximum one? 2000.
Yeah. And the Aztec also caught that the UI won't allow for past dates, so you can't book a shore leave in the past, which maybe you should reconsider for Star Trek. There's some weird temporal stuff happening there. I think time travel is a thing.
Or maybe we can go back in time and leave it like year 2 and see what's going to happen, right? So reason to leave. Okay, let's leave it like that. It's an optional. There is no. Okay, it's not mandatory. And this is the thing where you do the validations, I guess. Right. So
I'm cracking up at Fuel's comment, right? I always book shore leave for my coworkers in the past, so then you get to decline them. You already had your shore leave. Sorry, declined. Now you're thinking ahead.
You have this check. Please enter a valid. Please enter a valid value. So okay, now we go. So what was the whole idea of this story? Of course, you can do this manually every time. You can, especially during regression, and lose a couple of weeks. But what's the point of entering all of this data, trying to randomize it and check different stuff, unless you have some validations and verifications? And I'm eager to check. I'm a little bit worried now on how I should validate this, because we have the so we have first name, family name, title, enter text for the years going back in time. Then I have the full, and then I have the submit button, right? And then things are getting quite interesting because I cannot see a good way of validating this message here from the UI. I mean, of course, we can try to code it, but this is not the idea, right? So this is why those point clicking automation tools are not just recording your clicks, but they have also access to the whole application structure, to the whole application DOM, right?
Okay.
And so we can see where is everything, which is even more fun, having in mind how the React DOM works and behaves and updates, right? So yeah, even better. And I can show you quickly from the settings actually how this tool does the automation itself, right? Proprietary name, smart file logic, or whatever. In order to click to find an element on the screen, first we capture and keep the current state of the application DOM, which you can reuse, right, or update. But then we need to find, let's say, click on the button, on the submit button. How do we find it? How do I find it? Well, it has a mix of locators, a mixed logic of locators, a combination of IDs, right? A name, source, href, whatever you decided to program and develop. And based on the combination of those locators, we are able to click a specific button or type into a specific field, right? It's even more fun when some of those are dynamic or do not exist at all, right? That's why usually, again, the idea is not to involve that much coding, right? The idea is to play with it a little bit. And if you don't have IDs, so have dynamic IDs, you can grab them, put them to the bottom of the list, refresh, update, and then the framework will not care about the ID. It's going to look for the name first or something like that.
Gotcha. So it'll try to find elements that match the name that we specify or the source that we've specified.
Absolutely, yeah.
Working its way down that list.
Or if you decided to experiment a little bit and add something unique, which is not here, ARIA tags or whatever you can think of, add it. I mean, literally add it the way it's called, right? As primary locator, put it on the bottom, on the top of the list, and maybe automation. I say maybe automation might be breeze easier, but who knows? Right. Without we check it, there is absolutely no way to know that. So this is how the automation works. An element is clicked based on the combination of those locators' properties, attributes. Right. Plus, of course, there is a backup logic in the case with Test Studio, which is the so-called search by image, because every single element that you use. And actually, it's a good example here. Let me see if I saved this. Okay, so every single element, see here, when I do the clicks,
it's like you took a screenshot.
These are the steps. Yeah, it corresponds to the corresponding. Corresponds to the corresponding. Sorry, it shows you the corresponding element behind with its properties. And I can show it on the screen, right? And these are the locators. This ID looks good, short-lived, and the tag name is form, but also it has its own image, and there it is. You can see it in the bottom. So the mix of the image of location and attributes location helps you find it, right?
We have an interesting question in the chat I want to bring to your attention before we move on. Aztec asks, can an OCR an element image to confirm entered text?
In my case, yes, absolutely. Again, from the UI, and it's a very good question. I always use the backup logic for the image verification. Here, by the way, the screenshot looks a little bit bigger, exactly because of the scaling, right? Because I
Mhm.
increased my monitor scaling in 150. But what you can do actually, and remember, I said that I was worried. I'm still worried about the verification of this warning,
Mhm.
right? So what you can do is now try to switch on the heavier theory from the tool set of those recorders, right? And here we are. So now I can switch on this little guy here, which is the element highlighter. I can pause recording, by the way, not to record some unnecessary steps or so. And I now try to recognize every single element that exists on the screen. Right, so it's a span, it's a Kendo input, yay, here for the rank, right? This element I can locate into the DOM, or I can build specific steps against it, right?
Oh.
If there is an image somewhere, right, you can add image verifications, right? Here, for
Mm.
example, the submit button, I can add such verification step, and my test studio went to the other monitor. And as you can see here, I recorded another step for the image verification, and you can try to select a portion of the entire image, or have some threshold and that kind of stuff, in order to make sure that the image will be recognized. Or even extract, I can extract the submit text from the button, right? But in our case, it wouldn't work exactly because I drastically increased my scaling, right? And it will just create some issues in the moment. So yeah, OCR and image recognition is a very powerful technique, but I wouldn't rely solely on it. Like I wouldn't rely only on the locators logic. I would use the the mixed approach with it. And this set, by the way, I don't think that the warning message, which appears after you click the submit button, appears into the DOM somehow, or maybe it appears quite quickly, right? Enter a
Oh,
valid.
I see. So that, like, tooltip is causing us an issue because it's not hanging
Mm,
around long enough to get caught by the
mm, I can't. Let me
Mm.
see. I can't even find it. So here's the deal. We have all the elements here captured, and when I go to the browser, to the recorder, I can try to do the following. Let's experiment now. It's very difficult to do it on one screen, so let's try. What I can do is shrink this guy, right? Then switch on the highlighter to recognize the elements. Then choose a random element, like the button, right? And
Mhm.
locate it into the DOM. Now my DOM would be opened within the test studio. No need to go inspect, use the browser. I know everybody loves the browser console, right? We have the DOM. We have the DOM here as well. And as you can see, the beautiful magic of React and the way the DOM refreshes. Come on, screen resolution. Okay. Uh, let me try to shrink this even more. So what I can try to do is, see, currently, what was it? Please, I can't find it anywhere, right? But obviously it's not loaded anywhere
Mm.
at the moment. If
Right.
I go and try to replicate it, right? I can't even click on it because we recognize this element title, right?
Mhm.
Which is fine. right? What we can try to do in such a case with such dynamically updating DOMs is the ability to walk it. So every time something loads quite quickly, right? You can capture it or by walking the DOM at the moment of its refresh and keep the current state of the DOM by that, right? This is done by this cute little walk button here, or with scroll walk shortcut, which I don't have on my laptop, although it's a fully functional keyboard laptop, and I think it's functioning K or something like that. You know, you can use function in K to walk it. So what we can try to do, I'm going to try it a few times, but I really need to be very quick or have at least two monitors. You know, try to generate it, and while it's being generated, walk the DOM with a shortcut and see if it is there, right? And still not there. Right. But you know, in the real life example, and by the way, talking about best practices, automation testing, usually what a really good set for doing would be having the application on one monitor and then have the second monitor kept for your testing tools, DOM Explorer, browser console, if you want to use it, and even an additional monitor as well, right? So you can do all of this at once. Or you can invoke your QA superpowers and past experience and say, what other validation can I do? If this wouldn't work, because what's the point of doing the clicks if the validations wouldn't go through, right? I mean, there is no point of testing if you ask me. If you just randomly click here and there, don't quote me on that, by the way. So I noticed that if you mess up something with the dates, let me switch off this recorder because highlighter because it's quite annoying at the moment. I noticed that if you mess up the dates, this color of the start and the end dates is red. And let me see if I'm correct. So what date should we put here? By the way, 2024. Okay. There we go. And why is start date still red?
I guess it thinks it's, maybe it won't let you choose it because it's today and it wants it later.
Come on.
Try giving it another day or two. Maybe set it for like
7th April. Okay. 2023. There we go. Yeah, I was right. So you have this.
Can't take the day off today. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, William. Okay, let's think out of the box. We cannot, I mean, easily for the time of this session, find the validation message. But let's focus on something else. Let's find this specific element here and record. Is it a span? From what I see,
I think so. Because yeah, it's part of the Kendo
faulting level container. So let's see where is it. Where it is. Start, right? So this will be with this beautiful ID, which I can bet that is dynamic. All right, for sure. And I can grab it directly from the DOM, right, and record click or validation against it, right, with such tools. So I can create a verification, and I guess it should be part of the it's not font, color and background, right? It's white, right? So currently it's white, so we're totally fine. But maybe we can say that verify that the color is not white, or input some regex here and do even more matches. Right. So I can do verification, and I click add step, right, for this. And when I go, I can see a step that says verify color and background style do not contain white color at the moment
Nice.
on this,
That's a
right?
smart way to work around that. And it's nice that it lets you test in like multiple ways, I guess, right? So one thing isn't consistent, or if errors can be flagged in multiple ways, you can check for all of them.
Absolutely. And the other idea of doing this automation testing, again, there was too much manual stuff involved here. Let's see, the real use of automation is to make sure that you have a very good script, very powerful and robust script, let's say, that, or test that you create, which then, as I just did, I don't know if anybody noticed or if you noticed, but I tried to kind of execute it.
Okay.
Right, and I tried to execute the script. Where is my second monitor? Here, and to verify that the color is not white or red, right? Since it's a part of the entire of the bigger ecosystem, right? I have two options: to run only this step, or try to run the entire test up to some specific point of time, right? And before that, I'm going to change the dates to make sure my script works here, and then we can run it and schedule it automatically and see how it goes, or if we can find more bugs. I'm pretty sure you're hoping that we don't do. Find
Yeah, I'm hoping, but I'm not holding my breath.
that's why
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure
So
there are
this
bugs in this.
was 7th of April. Actually, no. If we input these dates, we'll have white color, but I need to have a red color. So let's leave them like that,
Right.
erroneous,
So it will
and
fail.
see what's going to happen. Right. And in the meantime, I think we have a question. Let me just try to execute this to some specific point of time, and we will continue. So I'm going to give it a run to here option, and now actually Test Studio will the tool will try to mimic my behavior or the end user behavior. I'm not touching anything at the moment, right?
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. The question in the meantime, when building automating processing, I use browser DevTools to help to capture. Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, all of us don't want to switch context a lot. I wish I could have everything on one place so that I use one tool to rule them all, and I don't leave my favorite IDE if you want, or something like that. That's why the more options you have within one tool, the less distraction, if you ask me. But it's totally fine to use the DevTools console as well. Right. And we do have a problem, by the way, which is good. I'm pretty sure we failed because we didn't input any ears. Here, we didn't even get to the pressing of the submit button, which is cool. And now both you and I are sweating, you for the bugs and myself to check what's going on with it. So what else those two tools do for you is, after you execute the scripts unattendedly, of course, you have failures in the scripts, which you can report. By the way, this is something that when I say automatically, it really happens automatically, right? You can put this as part of your pipelines, right? Whenever you trigger a build or something like that, the ideal case of automation is to have the pipeline call the automated test as well, and do that, whether it's a smoke test or something like that, but execute it automatically with it, right? So indeed, no other user input should be involved into the ideal case. And if the script fails, and obviously your pipeline would fail as well, you have two options. Only two options. Sorry, it's simple like that. You either found a bug into the app, which you can later on submit. Usually, those tools are pretty well integrated into the other software development lifecycle. ecosystems, meaning that you can check what's happening, submit a bug to a bug tracking system, or push it to source control or something like that. So it's not only the tool itself, like it's always part of the bigger system here. So you either have a bug, which is your ultimate goal, and you save, you spared your customers from finding it before you did, or your script is not working correctly for some reason, right? That's why, if you ask me, the first order of business would be checking what's really happening with your scripts. Don't be too quick to push everything to the devs and blame them on introducing so many bugs.
I'm sure the devs appreciate that.
check what's happening. Like you have the execution log, and you can see actually what exactly happened up until which step we were successful, and unable to find the element by find expression. Actually, the most common mistake, the most common error that people usually would see when they enter the magical world of automation testing. Right. So we couldn't find the date because we couldn't click on it. And then a little showcase of debugging. Right. I find here what I would usually do is see what the problem is, right? See the screenshots of expected state and actual state, all of these things that you need to bundle when you do manual testing, and check the element. My element is highlighted automatically here, the element related to this step, right? It's there. And I can double click and see with some hints and winks here, wink, wink, your ID is that kind of stuff. And I'm sorry to say that, Kathryn, but this ID is dynamic, and the guys who test your application would not be exactly happy.
They would hate that.
Happy with it. Right? And you have two options here. Again, multiple options, depending on how your application is built. And I honestly don't know how this application is built because we didn't have time to sync up too much in the beginning. But if there is a portion of this ID which is static and doesn't change, I mean only a little portion, you can change the logic operator. It could be contains or starts with, or or regex again, right? Or you can try to push it, to delete it. But what will happen if you delete it? If we delete it, if we delete the ID, now we just have one input, single input element, even without an index. And I'm pretty sure that you have, not sure, I'm convinced that you have multiple inputs here on this form. So if we leave it like this, how would Test Studio differentiate, or the UI testing tool will differentiate between this input and this input, and maybe this is an input as well, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
So you have to complicate a little bit the find logic yourself, right? Again, you can very easily right-click on the step and change it in code. I need to do this every time there are updates, or try to see either some of the magical suggestions that the tools usually give you, or play or find it into the DOM or into the Chrome browser DevTools console and see something else, or ask directly the developer, hey, tell me. So let's see this placeholder. No, it's first name. It will go back to the we'll go back to the first name input field. Maybe it's the tag index here. If you have several input fields, if you have 4, what will happen if I change the index to 3? Right. Real debugging, by the way, guys, in real time. I have no idea what's going to happen, but this is the poor life of the automation QA tester, right? So I changed this tag index, and let's see what will happen if I try to run it? Right. Oh, nice. Cool.
That
So
works.
it was number 3. So the first start date is the index number 2, right? That we need to change, right? Good. And now we have a false positive, by the way, because the 2 actually entered the data, but it entered it into the incorrect
Wrong
spot.
one.
That's why validations and verifications are so important to allow. And there are multiple ways to create such validations. Let me just quickly try to change it to input 2, and there we go. I can save the element. It would be reused by the way everywhere else. If I call this element from somewhere else, other projects or tests, I don't need to do any changes at all because it stores centrally the different all the changes are applied centrally, and TestStudio stores everything into one place. Right. For it, oops, I had to start the application from beginning. Sorry about that. And yeah, a quick example of some debugging. How does it seem? Are you still so sold out to software testing, or you prefer to stick with not knowing about it?
No, you convinced me. That was easier than I thought it would. I don't know why I thought that there would be much more like coding involved. It would have to be like a lot more work that I would have to code. But this was really just point and click, right? Aztec actually, right? Throughout there, I automated a lot of client UIs. It's like a great tool set. So I trust Aztec's expertise.
Yeah, we have a confirmation here from the audience.
We get some confirmation.
We have a success here, and I just found a bug. Sorry about that. So now our data entry can be automated, but do you see what just happened? It said 0022 or something like that for the data entry, and my script specifically was 2023, which was executed. Now you also have some other options, by the way, some automation tips and tricks, again related to the way the application is developed and done. What are all of this? I don't want to go all those properties and stuff, but JavaScript, events, yay, simulate real typing, or simulate real click if you have a click steps, right? You know this much better than me, when or where and how the different events are triggered and different validations are done. That's why usually tools, point and click recording tools, have this powerful feature and option to simulate literally real user clicks, right? Which would trigger the corresponding events, or just leave it like a normal click if you switch this option by default. And usually what I do is very quickly try both options with a real click and not real click and see how it goes, right? With it. And I always forget that I need to, in my case, start from here. I can I can also check some specific tests, but I prefer to start from beginning in order to reset the DOM state, make it easier for this. And here, as you can see, without the simulating real click, we managed to enter the 5th April 2023 quite successfully. Yay. And it was not a bug. So you should be happy. Yes.
Safe for now. Another interesting question, not to interrupt you, but one more from the comments. When simulating typing, can you change the delay between keystrokes?
Actually, yes, and I'm still not sure if this is a bug or not. But I because when I recorded all of this, when I recorded all of this with Test Studio, and I was typing with my with my keyboard the first time I wanted to create a script. right?
I do think
You
there's
know,
something wonky with that input.
uh, I think there is something with that input because see if
Yeah.
I somebody's calling me, sorry. If I want to type very quickly here 2023, I mean really quickly. I'm not recording by the way now. I switched on the
Yeah.
switched off the recording options, or 34, 35. Now it worked. But you know, that's the idea of testing, right? Uh,
Right.
Sometimes it grabs them and sometimes it doesn't, and it's a very good question that the guys asked here. Yes, you can change the delay. I haven't tried it here. So if I invoke the properties, I have a bunch of configs, hundreds of configs, but I have the key hold time. I can decide exactly how long I want to press the key hold, or I can invoke typing delay. All of this is milliseconds, right? So I can
Mhm.
start like typing for 5 seconds, which would be a little bit too much, right? So yeah, usually these are options that come by default, and you have them out of the box. And by the way, talking about options and something that comes out of the box, you mentioned coding. Nothing prevents me to copy this step, paste it, so I can play with it, and say editing code, right? But I really don't want to go there, right?
Me neither. What is this?
Not,
What is
not
it
yet,
written in?
right?
If we're editing in code, what's the language?
Yeah. So this is a .NET based tool. So
Ah,
in our case, you need to reference if you want to go the coded way. You can reference any .NET namespace.
gotcha.
Right, in order to do that. But I wouldn't necessarily use it unless I want to go further into my application and do some changes in the database, or do some very overly complicated extracts and file
Yeah.
management and that kind of stuff. I would really use the UI to do all of this, even for our favorite validations of conditional formats. Um, I want to make sure that if the cover is the cover of my, I just added this if else statement.
Mhm.
If the cover is not white or is white, I can proceed further, or I can press the submit button. I can try to move the submit button within the if else statement. It's always very difficult for me when I do it on my laptop, and I couldn't do it the first time. Uh,
There you go.
Yeah, but basically you can have those conditions and whoops and while whoops again without the
Oh,
necessity of bothering writing some coding,
that's really
right?
nice.
Kind of eases your life, you know, of
Yeah.
all this. And yeah, so about the typings, I'm not sure if it is a bug or not. What you, if you want to really check it, randomize it. Um, I don't want to go into the topic of deterministic testing, and not at the moment. But you can try to just randomize your data entries. Again, such tools are supposed to have configurations that will greatly help you have such variables. Uh, Test Studio is one of them, meaning that at any point of time, I can go to my step builder, right? And have a data generator, right? I can generate a
Oh,
random
cool.
number, random string in order to check my name. I can have some prefixes and about symbols and the string length, and see if it's going to be William Reich something else, right?
Mhm.
Right, something like that. But I also can use the generate random data and time, and generate or the current date and time. So what this actually does in point and click recording tool is that if you place it somewhere towards the beginning of your script so that the step goes further, right? You can have it. You can execute it.
Okay.
And after you do this, so let me run this to here. And see how it goes. And afterwards, you have, oh, my build is successful. There you go. Because I changed one of the steps into code. Right, nice. After these are generated, you can easily reuse them as variables within the the script further on. Whenever you have some input. Right. So if I go to properties now, right? So my first variable is called temp.
Mm.
My second variable is called temp1. Of course, I can change those names, but they're generated now successfully. And whenever I have enter text, right, instead of entering William, the next time the script is run, I can data bind this to the variable called temp that is generated, that's generating a random string based on some criteria.
Nice.
Right. And this is, again, something that can ease your life a little bit more. And I know we're running a little bit ahead of time, so let's not do the current date generation thingy. Ooh, so nice. Something that we generated. Right. I used both the first name and the last name for this input here,
Yeah.
but I can split them and have different variables. Data driving, by the way, it's really important because you can generate those out of the box, or you can hook your entire database into such tool. Right.
Oh, so
And
it'll
hook
like pull randomly from your database.
absolutely,
That's
because in real life,
That's cool.
in real life, I would have some data sources here. It could be my Excel file, or it could be my real database. Pull the data from there, and have a
Mhm.
really data-driven test, which would run into iterations. What do I mean? Like, if let's pretend this is my registration page, which is actually a registration page, and let's check if I can register with different. I can register with the captain, I can register with the admiral, I can register with whoever rank, with different names, with different positions, with different dates. I don't want to create 10 tests about it, I want to create one test. But data drive every single field that has some input into that, be it with random string, or be it with random variable, or with a variable that comes directly from my database, and then execute the test. And this test will run as many times as you have recorded in your database. So you have 10 records in your database, the test will be executed 10 times in 10 iterations. Each time you would request a short lived for a different species. Let's say it like that, if we're in the Star Trek universe. So this is
Yes.
the power of data driving, which is an essential part of automation testing. And I would always use it whenever I have the chance to do it.
That's really cool. And I feel like, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world, right? To be able to pull from your actual data and test under circumstances as close to real life as we can. So that's neat. I don't know why I didn't assume that could happen, but that kind of blew my mind a little bit. That's cool.
Absolutely. And you know what? Talking about data and randomization and that kind of stuff, actually, something that I'm starting to realize recently is that the majority of such tools cannot be used only for automation testing. Of course, they can use only for automation testing, but talking about data entries and robot processing automation, don't throw stones at me. when I talk about robot processing automation. But it's one of the essences, the ability to be able to interact with an application unattendedly, and I mean interact, not necessarily tested. If I have my huge database, which I really want to populate my CMS with, right? You can quite straightforwardly do it with such automation testing tool, which automatically becomes an automated data entry tool. Because you have the data entry, right? You have the variables, you have the validations, which you can later on make and say, hey, is the first name really called verified input value equals will whoever, right? So you can have this validation or extract it and pass it even further based on some business rules or processes. So it's very handy that you can give it a try and look from another perspective on those tools like automated data entry and validation tools for any kind of application. By the way, we're testing now, we're React and JavaScript folks here, but nothing would prevent me from doing the same with .NET app or .NET Core app or desktop application and that kind of stuff, right? Usually the tool set should be universal, right? Regardless of the application technology.
Yeah, that is very cool, and I need to start doing this, and it's not as hard as I thought.
I see that you're extremely impressed with with what we're doing.
We are just about at time, so I'm going to throw out to the audience if y'all in the comments have any last questions or anything, drop them in. This is your chance. Questions about testing, about Test Studio specifically, about his favorite Star Trek show. Now's your moment. While we do that, if folks want to find you to read more from you or interested in talking about Test Studio, where can people find you?
Yeah, pretty much I can share my info like online, like Twitter tags and LinkedIn, or why not directly, right? Or why not you start inviting me like every other Wednesday and start doing that more often. So pretty much a lot of options here. Aztec, thank you very much. Aztec Consulting, thank you very much for the kind words here. And I really hope it was a nice talk. And here we managed to scratch the surface a little bit about testing, and maybe next time there would be more folks that would test, right? So we try to make the world a better place, maybe. And prevent the next Y2K. I read somewhere, I forgot, that in size we might have a similar problem like in 100 years or something like that. I need to double check this and see where the next end of the world is going to be. So
yeah, we should be prepared. We should be testing for that.
Definitely.
But no, thank you so much for coming on, and thanks all of y'all for tuning in. I hope you guys all have a great day, and we will see you. React Wednesdays will be back, I believe, in another week or two with a Learn with Hatali episode, and then 2 weeks after that, another React Wednesdays. So stay tuned and have a good one, y'all.
Thank you.
I'll see you later.
Have a nice remaining of your days or evenings.